Hey Tim, looks like you're the first one in tonight. How are you, man? So how's your new project going? Any progress yet?
Oh yeah. Okay. So the way that this works is tomorrow, and I think I'll start sending you a little update because I think what I want to do is I'm recording a lot of it, and when I start my YouTube channel, I was telling my wife just like a motion picture, I want to have enough content so that I'm not chasing my tail
Mm-hmm.
and I can edit it and I can upload it once a week. So I think I won't start the channel until probably after I open.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll go back to March when I first took my first video when I received the keys.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to do that. But right now, tomorrow, I have my sign people come in to take down the KOK sign. My architect has already has the plans, and so we have the demo schedule for next week. I have all utilities are on board now. As soon as I turned on the water in one of the suites, it started flooding the other suite, and so that was my first like
Mm-hmm.
crazy thing, you know. And so they came back like, "You're flooding our bathrooms," and so there was a
Mm-hmm.
in between the wall, the pipes were broke, and so
Mm-hmm.
it was slowly flooding my bathroom, but it was like a waterfall in their bathroom, and
Yep.
so I had to get emergency plumbers there, and they had to call in LADWP back, and so that was interesting. I recorded that stuff, so that
Mm-hmm.
was interesting. I don't know how I'm going to. Um, I was telling my wife, I think it's better to record it and then um, have the commentary on top of it so
Mm-hmm.
that I'm calm. There's no um, background noise and everything, but I don't know how to do that. So I have to learn how to do that. I have to learn how to edit. I have to learn how to do all
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. So it'll take a while before I get. I think that period will be by the time it's August. I would have known how to record it and delete certain things and all the
Mm-hmm.
stuff that you guys do um, to make it entertaining,
Mm-hmm.
for the audience.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
I taught myself all the video editing just watching. I use Premiere Pro is what I use, which is an Adobe product, and it's pretty click and easy, user friendly. Like it's not too hard at all. But I learned all through YouTube, and I will say I agree with the commentary because we did some videos with our Amelia reconstruction, and Dave did like walkthroughs where he's talking, and the quality of the audio with all
Mm-hmm.
the background noise and everything, they just didn't turn out as well as like if you just had video and then talk over it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good plan, but it's really not too hard. It's hard to be professional at it, but it's not very hard to be decent.
To be good enough.
okay, I'll go for decent right now.
That's
Yeah.
where I go for.
Well, it's
That's
like
that's my bar.
I think it's like everything in life, I mean, you just start and you understand you're not a pro and not going to look like a pro, and you do the best you can, and the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And you might never be a pro, but the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. I know that's been the case. She's way better than she was in the beginning, for sure.
I've improved.
Yep.
I'll never be professional, but I'm good enough for our little niche podcast.
Hmm.
Exactly. No, it's very good, and I think Dave may have mentioned this, but the gift card, the $50 gift card you sent, I use it to buy
Hmm.
a video rig, that's
Oh,
going to
nice.
help me with the video. So every time I do a video, I'm gonna think of you guys, and
Aw.
Hmm.
I'll mention you. So it's professional looking, and it has the microphone and the light and everything, and so I'm playing around with that.
Hmm.
So that's going to be fun because
It's amazing. It's
in your
amazing what you
journey,
can do with something like that and a phone. I mean, the
Mhm.
phone's
yeah,
cameras are so good nowadays,
Mhm.
and those tools are just not that expensive to buy.
and a
And
battery
they're just,
backup so it
yep.
doesn't, it doesn't lose,
Hmm.
and so that's going to be fun. So I'm working on that and getting that going. My sign is like, man, it's going to be so great. I'm just so pleased that I started early because I've only signed the lease last month, so I'm 29 days in. And I've got the architect almost done with the plans. I've got the demo guys coming next week. I've got the sign guys coming tomorrow. I've got the utilities are online. And then I didn't mention, but 2 weeks ago, I went to an Alliance spring show, and
Hmm.
it was close to my house. And so I met the people that you talked to, that you reached out to, Dave, on the phone. So
Hmm.
Courtney, which was a general manager, and
Hmm.
then his boss, um, and his boss's boss. And so they were all at the show. So
Was that Mike and Craig? Mike Hand and
Mike,
Craig?
yep, yep,
Okay.
very good, very
Yeah.
good. So
Yep.
they were all at this at it was probably about 30 minutes, 40 minutes from my home.
Okay.
And so I walk up and I sign in, and then I initially asked for Anna, who was the finance gal. And this is kind of interesting because they gave me 100% financing, 100% on the equipment and 100% on the construction.
Awesome.
Yeah, and
That's because you're not much risk.
I couldn't. Well, no, I couldn't have done it without the introductions.
Hmm.
It just would not have been possible. And so
That's good to hear.
yeah, I did get an email from their marketing. They want to interview me and then do a video.
Awesome.
And so I'll probably be on a commercial, with them.
Yeah.
Hopefully after my store opens. But I met Courtney, and I was sitting with Shannon at the table, and Courtney came up and Shannon said, "This is Tim Richardson. This is Deluxe Laundry." He goes, "Deluxe Laundry?" He goes, "We had the conversation with," and he just lit up like a Christmas tree.
Hmm.
And I said, "Yeah, that was so really good that you guys went ahead and just gave me the 8 signal boards." He said, "You know what? We had profit in there, but what we want to do is, we think that we're probably going to do that in our manufacturing, and we know that Dave is using Perfect Pour, and you're thinking of using Perfect Pour, and we're probably want to do a white paper on Perfect Pour and use you as a springboard to if we actually put 8 signal boards into our manufacturing." So
That's
uh,
awesome.
they're basically saying, "Can you help us out with that?" So
Hmm.
they kind of want to use me as a guinea pig as they are you.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And they spoke very highly of Dave Mintz, and he's like, "So, okay, so Dave Mintz?" I'm like, "He's my coach." I think it's super cool because now for the first time, I never went to a show or anything because I wasn't an owner.
Hmm.
I didn't have a mat, and so I'm thinking I'll wait till I have one and then go. And then I go, and it's almost like keys to the castle because people are walking by like, "I have 6 mats, I have 12 mats,"
Hmm.
and everybody's walking around in shorts and t-shirts, and the vendors are there. I talked to the guy at Sense, and
Hmm.
it just felt so good to be a part of that community, and everyone was so welcoming and everything. It's fascinating.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's where our industry is growing. I mean, we've always had distributor shows, but our industry is growing in that way. And, part of the reason it's happening is because of people like you being willing to, network and collaborate and get to know other people. And, anything I always tell people, I don't remember if I specifically said it to you or not when we're doing like a coaching discovery call or whatever, I tell them, obviously my knowledge and my experience and all that, anything I can help you with, point you in the right direction, I will. But as I told you, my network is sometimes, not always, but sometimes pretty powerful. And anything I can do to help you be successful, I will. If it means making 10 phone calls, let alone one, I'm happy to do that. And yeah, Alliance is being a wonderful partner in helping us kind of trailblaze this perfect pour thing. They definitely didn't have to do what they're doing and put all the resources behind it that they're doing, but I think they believe there's something there, and they want to be, they want to be an innovator via the touch controls, which is awesome for me and awesome for you. So That's the way it should be. You know, everybody's winning. They're getting what they want. They're getting some data. They're getting some reviews. They're getting some white papers. You know, they're getting kind of proof of concept. And there's a few other people in the industry that are looking at using Perfect Pour with touch. Obviously, there's other people looking to use Perfect Pour with other products, but I think it's going to be good for the industry. So
Had you
that's good to
shared
see.
with Tim yet about that we'll be starting the Perfect Pour sooner than we thought?
Well, I
To
never really
limited
gave him
capacity?
I never really gave him a date, but because I didn't have a date. But yeah, I guess I hadn't really given you probably an update because we haven't talked lately. But yeah, they'll be turning on. Alliance has the first rendition of the updated control, which will basically be one detergent and one softener, is kind of phase one in what they call a cycle modifier. So, you know, a cycle modifier is like extra wash, extra rinse, things like that.
Right.
So they're basically building in an additional cycle modifier. That's I call it the silver package. It's the entry level for Perfect Pour, and it'll be one detergent and one softener, and that should be working hopefully in the next 2 weeks in my store. And so I'll be able to collect kind of a baseline of data with just saying, okay, we have detergent or softener. Do you want it or not? Right? And here's the price. And then kind of the gold package, what they're building actively, and they're
They've got to
saying,
adjust the software and do
yeah,
quite a bit to
they've
get
got
to
to do.
that.
It's a pretty big lift in their technology upgrade. But what they're building is what I call the gold package, and that'll be our ability to sell or to upsell up to 4 detergents. Which actually you'll be able to do more, but what we'll be doing is 4 detergents and 2 softeners. And so I'm curious to start collecting the data when we basically just have one product, or really two, I guess, and see what the adoption rate is like with that. And then it'll probably be about 4 months or so, 4 or 5 months before they get all the other modifiers built in. And once they get that done, then I'll have let's call it a quarter's worth of data on one product. And then I'm curious to see when we add more products, how does the adoption go up? You know, when we start adding Tide and Gain and name brand products and things like that. And then during that time, I'm also going to be kind of increasing the price. So my plan is to offer it to everyone and put some signage in the store for the first 60 days for free. Just tell everybody it's built into the system. It's completely free. If you want it, just click on the thing and you'll get free softener and free detergent. And kind of read the data and say, okay, when it's free, it does this. And when I charge $1, it does this. And when I do $2, it does this. And, on the bigger machines like the 80s, I'm considering even testing $3, and seeing how they react to it. And kind of seeing, obviously we know there's a customer value there just in the improved experience and things like that, but how much do they value this? So those are the things that are going to happen really between now and the end of the year, kind of, that we'll be testing different things and playing with prices, and we'll probably even move some of the products around. Like if I put Tide at the beginning, do I get more adoption? Or if I put it at the end, do I get less adoption? And do I charge more for Tide and less for other brands? And that's kind of my plan, is just to play around with it and let the consumers, let the customers tell me what's important to them and what's not, and what the value prop is. So, and
Well,
obviously
yeah,
we're going to share
yeah.
all that
I'm
data
gonna
too.
I'm gonna totally follow your lead. I got the quote from him, like 122,000,
Hmm.
and I will put everything in place and I'll wait. And
Hmm.
so, I'll be there in July, if we're still gonna have a thing in July,
Mhm.
Yep.
and I'll open in August. That's the goal. And then I'm just gonna follow your lead. I'm just gonna
Hmm.
see, how it works. And
We have a
That,
few other people that are waiting for our data.
yeah, kind of like you.
so I got 2 questions.
Yep.
Okay. One, this is the biggest question. I was watching one of your older videos where you did the commercial. And I think the byline when they did commercial on was it perfect? It wasn't perfect, for it was Ozone. The commercial, the professional commercial that you guys did on
Oh
Ozone,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
and you said that was a mistake. And that was kind of like the byline. And I watched the entire video, but I didn't hear what the mistake was. Like it didn't work, or it didn't generate the
Hmm.
revenue that you thought.
You're talking about the Sanowash episode of the podcast?
Yeah, where you had
Oh.
your kids in it. They were, and you basically was showing the actors and you're like, oh, here's the actors, and these are professional actors. And the guy came in and he was a kind of a nerd and said, "Oh, I thought I could come in and just talk about everything that's happening to me." And I was looking at the literal commercial, and it was supposed to be about ozone, and you had the female actress and the male actor, and he's kind of nerdy, and he was like, and I thought I should come in and tell you all this stuff that's going on in my life. My dog died and all this kind of stuff.
Okay.
Oh.
So there's two different
Yeah.
commercials.
Yes.
We had two different commercials professionally done. So one of them is okay.
For Queen
It
City
didn't have
Laundry.
it was for Queen City Laundry, and it does mention Sanowash. And so the advertising company that we used, it was kind of their spin on the idea, but their idea was he comes in to air his dirty laundry. So
Correct,
he
that's it.
comes in, yeah, he comes in and like shares secrets that he doesn't want people to know. And she's like, no, this is to clean your dirty laundry, and we get it extra clean with Sanowash, blah blah blah. So it was kind of a cheesy gimmick.
Yeah, and when I have to look back at it because I think the tagline was this commercial didn't work, or we didn't like this commercial. I have
No.
to
I think so. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
not at all. In fact, we still use it today.
Well,
okay.
we also have one that we use for
Right.
pickup and delivery. And that one does have our boys in it. It was shot in our house with professional actors other than our boys, though. But it's about, so it's a wife leaves on a business trip, and she's like, honey, can you take care of that laundry? And it's called like the laundry monster or whatever. And he has this big pile of laundry. He's like, oh my gosh, there's no way I can ever get it done. And then an ad pops up on his phone for laundry pickup and delivery. He's like, oh, wait a second. And then it shows, the laundry getting delivered. And he was like, that was easy. And she's
Yeah,
all
I saw-
impressed.
Yeah, I saw the making of it, but I didn't see the actual commercial.
Oh, okay.
The commercial's on the YouTube channel, but it's also just on our Queen City Laundry page. They both are.
Yeah, if you
Our
go to
site.
our website, they're both of them are
Yeah.
on there.
But no, we did not and do not regret making the commercials. They were, we had a company come in town they were from Texas. They came to Cincinnati and brought a crew with them, and they hired actors here in Cincinnati. They did a casting call before they showed up and had had the script written and all that stuff. And like she said, they shot one of them in our store and one of them in our house. They shot one, they were here for 2 days. They shot one day and one the next day. And I mean, it was an investment of time and resources for sure. But then we took those two, and obviously one's for pickup and delivery, one's for Sanowash, the self-serve, where we advertise we're the only laundromat in Cincinnati that sanitizes your laundry for the self-serve side. But we ran for probably a year and a half. We ran those commercials on Facebook, advertising our pickup and delivery and our self-serve. And both of them did amazing. So no, we didn't and don't regret making those commercials at all. I'm not sure what the misunderstanding was.
I don't know. I think you did there was maybe a short video that you did on YouTube about making them. And maybe he said, I know you were shocked by how much work went into it, and like understood why people wouldn't want to be an actor.
Yeah.
Because you like say the same thing over and over and over. Like, no, say it with a little more trepidation
Like you would
in your
would
voice.
think it's like, I don't know if you've been involved in that, but no, yeah, the only negative thing I really said is, I mean, we did it in our house and we did one in our store, so we had to close the store for, I don't know, probably half a day, maybe a day. But no, the only negative in the experience was how incredibly boring it was. Like I thought it would be like super cool and wow and awesome, and I mean it was fascinating for about 30 minutes, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to shoot myself. So it was actually really painful to just experience it.
And those were just for commercials. So to
yeah.
imagine what people go through
a
for
movie
like
or a
a
TV
TV show or movie
Cannot
length.
imagine.
Like ours was like 2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean it took 4 or 5 hours.
Oh yeah, it took
And they're
several
shooting,
hours to
you know,
do
it's
2 minutes.
it was amazing to watch the creatives work, to watch the director work and things like that, because they already have ideas in their brain of how this scene will go with this scene and this scene will go with this scene, but they got to shoot all the scenes individually in different places and different
Yeah,
timing.
they're
and-
not shot in order.
No.
Like everything in this setting is shot
At one
together, but it might that setting might show up at 3 different places in the commercial,
Yep.
you know, like, I don't know, it's
back
weird.
and forth, back and forth. So I don't know, maybe that's what I was referring to. I think I did say something about like, man, I, not that I ever wanted to be an actor, but I was like, after watching that, I have totally new respect for actors and directors and stuff. I mean, that's freaking work. Like that is work.
Hey, so I just Googled it. Let's see. I'm there. Let's see.
Yeah.
So, Laundry, I'm going to make sure this is your channel. It says professional marketing for a laundromat, question mark. What a waste of money. And so let me,
Oh, I wonder if he's saying because other people said, what a waste of money. Like, and he's
Oh, maybe.
like in
Yeah, I don't know.
defiance of it being a waste of money.
I did have several
Where the
people.
haters were like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, what a waste of money.
I
That
did
might
have
be what-
several people tell
that
me,
might be the
I
spiel.
can't believe you shot a professional commercial for a laundromat.
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Maybe,
Okay.
maybe that's what I'm referring to. I don't
That
know.
was before
That's a
I
couple
made
years
your
ago.
thumbnails.
November 30th, 2020. So I was just thinking, okay, next time I talk to Dave, like, how was it a waste of money? 'Cause I was
No, not at all.
We're still,
Oh,
like I
okay.
said, we're still using them.
The
was that
commercial.
clickbait? Maybe
Yeah.
that was clickbait.
Well, that might be actually. Back then we
Okay.
had Carla makes all of our thumbnails now, but back then we had somebody else making them, so it might have been a little clickbaity. But we did have some laundromat owners because I kind of share pretty much everything we do with the industry. And I did have some owners that were like, "Who's this guy think he is? Like having professional commercials made for a laundromat? What an idiot!"
Oh, sarcasm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that might be what I don't know. This is probably 2 or 3 years ago now, but
Yeah, it was 4 years
yeah.
ago.
Was it? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, to answer your question, I mean, we did get a heck of a deal, but we paid, I think it was like $15,000 to have those 2 commercials made.
That's not bad.
And we used them for at least a year or 18 months, running ads on Facebook and Instagram and places like that. And I mean, both of them paid for themselves and paid for the Sanowash system. So there's a different episode where we're actually interviewing the owners of Sanowash, the head engineer and the owner of the company. It's a like a full blown actual podcast, not just a video. And in that, we're talking about Sanowash and the product and how it works, and we shared our experience of, hey, we installed it. I don't remember if I shared the cost, but that we installed it. I think I just said a ballpark of the cost, and I included the cost of the commercial in there. And I said basically, this is what the system costs, this is what the commercial cost, and we got our money back in about 14 months. So
Okay.
we got the cost of the system back and the cost of the commercials back, and it increased our business about 30%, and that's just self-serve alone. And that was a store that would, let me think, the store had been open for decades, but we had owned it and remodeled it for probably about 5 or 6 years. So it had kind of plateaued, and we put Sanowash in, did the commercials, did all this advertising, and over the next 12 to 18 months, business jumped about 30%. So that was the full length podcast where we interview them. We kind of share all that with whoever's listening.
Okay.
Yeah, and since I've taught myself how to use Premiere Pro, we've even taken the commercials and edited them here and there to update them, like because our Sanowash commercial was just for our Mount Washington store, but we added Sanowash at our Amelia store, so I was able to tweak the commercial and we can use it for both locations.
Yep.
Oh.
And
And actually, we've
when
got
we did the pickup and delivery, we were using Happy Nest, so I had to like overlay things on the truck and stuff.
You had to kind of
cover up the
splice in
I had
our
to
new
splice
truck
in some
and
stuff for
our
the
new
branding and like
Yep.
cover up the guy's logo on his polo shirt.
That's why you can't see certain emblems and things.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been edited as
Yeah.
things have changed, but we're still using it.
Yeah.
So
But we're actually, I'm not even sure if Carla knows this, but we have Launder Boost, our marketing company. I assume you know that. And they're going to start doing some retargeting ads. So when people visit our website, they're going to, they visit our website and don't take any action. They don't sign up for pickup and delivery, as an example. We're going to start retargeting them. And the retargeting ads that we're going to do, that we're going to follow them around the internet, is what I call it, is going to be that video. So we're going to run that. They'll see the video on our website if they click on it, but if they go to the website, don't sign up for pickup and delivery, then they're going to clip that video up or that commercial up and use it for retargeting ads. So this is, like I said, 3 or 4 years later, we're still using the commercial in different ways. So,
Okay.
it was
Yeah, I
definitely
think-
a good investment for sure.
Yeah. So what's today? Tuesday. So Thursday you're gonna be talking to Brett and
hmm
and
The
the CEO.
Q&A with them at
Mhm.
1
Yeah.
or
So
1, okay.
I've got my quote from him. I'm going
Yep.
with you guys.
Oh, awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, but the idea is like, wait for like a month before you open. Don't go too soon.
Yeah, you want to do your soft. I mean, I don't know where you're at with website and branding and all that. I know you've been working on that stuff. You want to get all that done for sure. Your Google My Business listing, and if you do like a Google My Business booster, which we do, which is kind of a way of putting your Google My Business listing on steroids.
It helps make sure you're in that top 3. Something
Yeah.
like 80% of people use the top, when they Google something, they'll
Top
only
3.
choose one of the top 3 that come up.
Mhm.
So you want
So
to make
there's
sure
a
you're in that top 3.
there's a few organic things, you building your website, your branding, and all that kind of stuff that you should start doing honestly now. But paid ads, you don't want to do that until after your soft opening. When you're basically ready to do some kind of a grand opening and you've worked out all the kinks and all the little silly idiosyncrasies and issues you'll have with a new store and new equipment. Once you've worked through all those for 4 to 6 weeks, that's when you'll want to start doing some Google ads and retargeting ads and things like that. So there's kind of a couple different phases to it, but
Yeah, so I'm working with him on that. So I've got
okay, good. So you've already talked to him?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good, good,
I've already talked to him. I got the quote.
awesome.
Got everything squared away. Probably about maybe 3 weeks ago or so. We were
Okay,
on
good. Oh,
when
I didn't I did an email introduction, right?
You did.
With you and him? Okay, that's what I
Yes.
thought. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. No, man, you're hitting the ground running, that's for sure. What was the other question you said you had?
What was the other question?
Well,
I have
if you don't know, I don't
The
know, Tim.
commercial.
Yeah, I should have wrote it down. I should have written it down.
That's how
See,
I
what
am.
was I thinking? What was I thinking? Oh, okay. So on the troughs, so I'm, I
Just
I can reach out to the company and get quotes and
oh yeah.
and get educated on it. But I don't know anything about that. So
hmm
We do have an
So I
episode
was gonna say,
about drains,
drain
about
troughs.
drain
Wow.
troughs, and a big part of it's about drain troughs, but it's overall about how to best design your drains and why that's important in a laundromat. I'll
Okay.
look and see. I can pull that. I can tell you what the episode is. I'll look. Dave, you can talk.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to really say. I mean, if we jump back into the coaching in the future, which I think is your plan, I mean, we can always talk about it in more detail. But yeah, we have it. That's what I was going to say. Is just for a baseline of knowledge, we have an entire podcast we did on that subject. It's not just drain troughs. It's drains in general and some maintenance things you should do and how to be proactive rather than reactive and keep your store from flooding on Sundays, which is our busiest day of the week. And it covers like a whole bunch of stuff, but it's all kind of around that same category. So if you haven't watched that, you'll want to watch that because it'll educate you quite a bit and it'll streamline, if we do that coaching call or whatever someday, it'll streamline that process for you. But if you just end up calling them directly, you'll also just have a lot more knowledge. And if you end up GCing it, or honestly, even if you don't GC it, you as the owner can't ever have too much knowledge. And you can't ever take, and you know this because you've done projects like this before. I know not in the laundromat industry, but I mean, you're a real estate guy. You can't ever take for granted what you think someone knows. It's trust but verify.
I agree.
And nothing against anyone, any distributor, any installer, any manufacturer, nothing against any other salespeople. I mean, sometimes people just have bad days, but sometimes people are really knowledgeable about 99% of their job, and they don't want to. They're supposed to be the expert. They don't want to admit that 1% they really don't know as well as they think they know. And then, of course, sometimes they just think they know it better than they actually do. I just happen to have unique knowledge because I made a whole bunch of mistakes, and my equipment distributor here in Cincinnati is the largest drain trough manufacturer in the world for laundromats. They just happen to be two companies that are both here in Cincinnati owned by the same people, which is one of my best friends. And so obviously I buy my drain troughs from them, but I've made mistakes on installation and sizing and things like that we caught later, and I had to undo, and they were very gracious and they helped me fix it and all that stuff. And then of course in my new store, I knew what I was doing right.
Sorry. Will not stop.
What happened?
I was pulling up the
She's-
video. I was going to send you the link.
She's trying to send you the link for that podcast, and she starts playing it on her computer.
Well, it was automatically playing.
Yeah. So anyway, my point is check out.
Quick
Yep.
question.
Yep.
So you said you made mistakes in the drain trough, and they helped you correct that. Talk to me about mistakes. Talk to me like I thought this was going to work, but it didn't, or I just didn't know. I'm kind of trying to pick your brain on what happened and how I can, I'm going to use you as a backstop. So you didn't
Sure.
have you, but I have you.
Sure.
So
No, yeah, for sure. Well, it kind of, so the biggest the biggest mistake I made was kind of 2-in-1. Okay. I bought the trough from them. And of course they knew that they were kind of my mentors. And I think they made a mistake and they would admit that, that they didn't kind of babysit me knowing that I was newer in the industry at the time. They know a lot about drain troughs, but they took for granted that I knew more than I did. So the part of the mistake was on their end and they admitted that, which is why they helped me fix it. But what it boils down to is it's all about water disbursement in a drain trough, not to get too nerdy, which we kind of do in that episode, by the way, and a lot more in depth. But you don't want to make a drain trough too wide because the water disbursement, when it comes out of the washers, when it's draining, will disperse too evenly across the bottom. If a drain trough is like 3 feet wide, which is what we did, I thought, oh, I have this nice wide bulkhead where you have plenty of room to walk around inside here if we're working on washers or working on plumbing. And I built this really big bulkhead and I had 3 foot of space width in there. So I had the drain trough manufactured 3 foot wide. Well, as an example, what was a big mistake is when the washers start draining, all the sediment, which is heavier than the water, it settles to the bottom. Well, when it's 3 foot wide and you have a washer draining with, I don't know, let's say 40 gallons of water, the water disbursement happens so evenly that all the sediment settles to the bottom and the water just kind of travels along the top of the sediment. And then when the water's gone, all that sediment just sits there and it smells. It stinks horrifically. So an example of one thing I did is I had 3 foot of room in my bulkhead, and so I made the drain trough 3 foot wide, which you never want to do. Now, why they let me do it, I have no idea. They shouldn't have let me do it, and they've admitted that. So one of the things that we did is we literally pulled out the drain trough, threw it in the garbage, and they built me a whole new drain trough for free, just because they felt so bad. Which, I'm a great customer, they're great friends, all that's wonderful. And what they did is they made the drain trough the capacity the same, they just made it taller. So instead of being 12 inches tall, they made it like 20 inches tall, but they only made it 18 inches wide. And so when it comes to the bottom of the drain trough, there's not, it's half the width. And so when water goes into it, the water disperses down the drain trough and it carries the sediment with it before it has time to settle in the bottom, which is what it's supposed to do. So an example of one thing I did wrong, I know this is probably boring as all get out, but one thing I did wrong is made it twice as wide as it should have been because I had the room. And you really don't want to ever make a drain trough more than 18 inches wide because of water disbursement. And then another thing, if you have a question, I'm happy to answer it. But the other thing that I did wrong in the same drain trough is we didn't pitch it. So you know how plumbing has to be pitched at like 1/8 of an inch per foot, I think it is, per linear foot, is the pitch of just any drain to cause, water to go downhill. A lot of manufacturers, distributors, and honestly, even general contractors, they know to do that with plumbing, with PVC, cast iron, whatever, but they don't know to do that with a drain trough. And I didn't know, and my plumber didn't know. So we ordered this drain trough, which was also 3 feet wide. It shouldn't have been, but we also sat it on a flat surface. And the drain trough was 30 feet long, which means every linear foot, it should have been pitched at 1/8 of an inch from the back to the front, to the drain where it drained into the floor. Well, it was completely flat. And so water would eventually kind of, if it felt like it, make it that direction. And if we poured enough water, if enough machines drained, eventually the water had to go somewhere, so it would make its way down the drain. But between the disbursement and the lack of a pitch in the drain trough, all that, I call it black gunk, it just settled in the bottom and it stunk. It smelled up my whole store. And it was to give an example of how big a deal this was, before I figured out what was happening and kind of lost my mind and educated myself, every week, I'm a big guy. Every week I would have to climb in that drain trough with a pressure washer. Every week. shut down the whole store, pressure wash everything out of the bottom of that, wash it all down to the bottom. And literally within 4 or 5 days, like that got rid of it all. Within 4 or 5 days,
Do it again.
the store smelled again. It
Oh,
smelled, people would walk in. I had spent, it wasn't a brand new store. We had limited resources back then. We probably had spent at least $300,000 in new equipment. It wasn't all new equipment, but a lot of it was new. And we
yeah.
had done some light remodeling and things like that. And it was way better than it was before. So people walk into this laundromat and they were like, wow, you did all this work. This is amazing. Look at the new machines, blah, blah, blah. What is that smell? And that's what I dealt with for 6 months. And every week I'm in there. And I finally called my mentor and I was like, I told him what I had been doing. He was like, you've been doing what? And I was like, I was about to throw this drain trough through the window. I was so furious. And he was like, you should not have to do that. And I'm like, well, I do. And he came out there and looked at it. They had just made the drain trough and dropped it off in our parking lot, and the plumber put it in. So the plumber didn't know, and
Yeah.
the distributor, like, they knew, but they didn't install it. So they didn't think to tell me or to tell the plumber. They took for granted that I knew, and they took for granted that the plumber knew.
And
Well,
they gave you what you asked for.
and they gave me what I asked for. That's exactly right. So it was kind of a perfect storm nightmare, and they felt horrible. But we went in, we actually had to take the window out because this thing was 30 feet long. We went in, took the window out, pulled that whole drain trough out. They cut it up, threw it away. It was like a $2,000, $3,000 drain trough probably, and then built me a whole brand new one. And they built a pitch in the bottom,
Wow.
so that it sloped properly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was, I don't remember, I think I went into pretty much all that detail. I don't really remember in the podcast, but that's an example. I mean, it was two
You talk
two
about
mistakes.
The importance of the pit.
Yeah, I talked about the importance of the
mistakes
pitch.
people make and why
Yeah.
some people have a bad feeling about drain troughs. It's either because they
Yep.
do things like those two things, or they buy or make their own that aren't
Mm-hmm.
as durable of material. But if you look in the chat, I actually linked the episode. So the episode on drains is right there. I think it's called
Okay.
something about floods.
Got
So what I always kind of tell people is, if you call the manufacturer, they make custom drain troughs, right? They're not a part of your project. They make what you tell them to make. And you tell them to make what your contractor tells you to make, right? Or whatever. And so if the contractor and or the plumber
There is nothing.
doesn't. Are
I
you?
have it clipped. Oh no, that was his.
That was me. I
That's
just,
not-
Oh, okay.
I'm like,
Okay.
I know I closed it.
Sorry about that.
So my point is, you could end up in the same situation where you know enough to be dangerous, but you don't know this.
Yes.
A contractor, a plumber, they don't think about it. It's common sense, but they just don't think about it because they don't normally install drain troughs. Like I said, they'll install PVC, they'll install cast iron, whatever, but they don't install PVC. Or I'm sorry, drain troughs. And so when they put a drain trough in, they just think, sit it on the floor. It's a box that drains, and they connect it up to the plumbing. Well, the plumbing is pitched properly, but the drain trough is not pitched properly. But they don't really know anything about a drain trough. They just hook it up. So you assume the plumber knows what they're doing, and they do, but they don't think about the consequences of this not being pitched in the same way the plumbing is. And then you may or may not know yourself as an owner. Your distributor, a lot of distributors don't know. I've heard a lot of distributors trash drain troughs as a industry thing, and they're like, oh, they smell and they require all this maintenance, and none of that is true if it's built and designed properly. So that's why we did the episode. It was funny because HM, the owner of HM, he actually called me after we did that episode, and I actually sent him the link. And he was like, "You are a godsend." He was like, you know how much that helped me? One, I think it sold more drain troughs, but two, I think it just helped people to be more knowledgeable, which is to his benefit. But yeah, if you talk to a lot of people in the industry, they'll tell you to stay away from drain troughs, and nothing is further from the truth as long as they're designed correctly.
And
But
installed
And
correctly.
and installed correctly, yes.
Got it. Okay. This is great. This
Yep.
is perfect. This is perfect.
And that's something, I mean, when I made that mistake, I was 4 years in. I mean, I already owned 2 laundromats, and this was on my 3rd store. But the thing is, in the first 2 stores, we had such limited, we had virtually no resources in our first 2 stores. So we bought these rundown laundromats. We put some new equipment in it, but that was it. I mean, we didn't change the plumbing, we didn't change the electric, we didn't change the layout. We put some new lights in, but that was about it. We cleaned the place up. So the first 2 stores we had, we just used the plumbing that was there. It was take out the old equipment, put in new equipment, hook it up to the plumbing, and go. Like,
Right.
we didn't put drain troughs in or anything like that. The 3rd store, we had a little bit more resources, and I knew that that was a better way to drain. And so we pulled all the old drains out and put a new drain troughs in, and then there was a learning curve. So yeah, if you understand these little idiosyncrasies about the business, you'll love the business. And when you don't understand just one little silly thing like that, it will make your life living hell. I mean,
Wow.
it was a nasty job, and me and my GM Marlene, one of us did it every week for probably at least 4 or 5 months, and both of us were just like, because
They were hating drain troughs.
it was a nasty job. In fact, how it escalated, I know we're getting out of time, but how it escalated is I called my best friend, who's my distributor, and I told him, I'm like, come take this thing out of my store. I'm just going to put PVC in here. And he was like, what are you talking about? Like, drain troughs are awesome. Why would you do that? I'm like, I hate this thing. It smells. It requires this. I have to do this. He was like, wait, you have to do what? And then we went through this whole conversation. The next morning, he met me at the store and was like, oh, Dave. He was like, his words were, he was like, we have let you down. And I was like, well, somebody did. I know that for sure. Like, I was furious.
So the alternative the other stores have is PVC that
Yeah.
just drains.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, by the way, if you have a store, which we are first to, if you have a store that has PVC drains, there's really nothing wrong with them. I mean, they're closed, so they can't smell. And when a plumber installs them, they're going to pitch them properly. The problem is there's two reasons you really want a drain trough. Carla's probably learning way more about this than she wants to know. Of course, she heard it all on the podcast. There's two reasons you want a drain trough in your store. One of them is at the end of it, they have what's called a lint interceptor. It's basically a giant plastic screen, and it screens out about 80 or 90% of the crap that comes out of the machines, out of the clothes, out of the machines, drops into the drain trough, and then it flows downhill with the water, and that screen catches it. So all that gunk doesn't end up in your actual drains of your store and clog your store and keep your store from flooding. So if you just have an open drain, there's no way to screen anything. And so the water goes into a 4 or 6 inch PVC pipe that's closed. It goes into the ground, then it goes out to the street. And whatever gets caught or sticks or settles or whatever, over time, it'll clog your whole store up and back up your whole store and flood your store, usually on the busiest day of the week. So that, in fact, always on your busiest day of the week. So one of the benefits of a drain trough is it has that lint interceptor built into it, and it will actually help you with maintenance of your whole store drain system. And then the other reason is water disbursement. So if you think of a 4 or even a 6 inch drain pipe, PVC drain pipe, how much water can fit in that thing at any one time? It sounds like a lot, but it's really not when you start draining 80, 60, 40-pound washers all simultaneously on, once again, a busy Sunday. And so what the drain troughs also do is act as a temporary holding tank. You know, an 18-inch wide by 18-inch tall drain trough is 3 or 4 times the capacity of a 6-inch drain, which you probably would have a 4-inch drain in your store. And so if the drain troughs are built and manufactured, if they're sized correctly, so that if every washer in your store drained at the same time, that some of it would go down the drain naturally, and then some of it would act as a holding tank in the drain trough before it gets screened by the lint interceptor, and catches all that gunk. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so that's when. What about the lint traps? Like, is that in the store or outside the store?
So these stores don't have those. The store I'm describing doesn't have those.
Okay.
If you have an older store, it may have one already built into it.
It has a lint trap, yeah.
Okay, so it's probably in really bad shape. You'll want to check that. If you have that, then you can get away with not having lint drain troughs in your store. But in a perfect world, you want both, because that lint, that pit is usually what they call them. If it's
Right.
usually in your parking lot or in the back
It's in
room
the
or
parking
something.
lot.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, something like that. So that typically doesn't screen any, usually, depending on the design, they usually don't screen anything out. What happens is all the water that's not screened, if you don't have a lint interceptor, all that drops into the pit, all the gunk settles to the bottom. The water, they're usually 6 or 8 feet deep. All the gunk settles to the bottom, all the water rises to the top, and when it rises to the top, it flows out to the sewer, to the street. But those pits will start to smell because all that gunk gets in the bottom of it. Now, it is outside, but it's also outside where your customers park.
Right.
And so usually within a few months, your pit will start to smell, especially on like a hot summer day or something like that, that pit will smell. Usually every 6 to 12 months, you'll want to have a pump truck come out and pump that out. Or I know laundromat owners that get down there with a shovel and actually clean it up themselves, which that's like
Ooh.
30 jobs kind of
I'm not
stuff.
doing
There is
that.
no way I would do that. I call a pump truck. It's like $1,000 and they'll come out, pump it all out, pressure wash it all, and you're good to go for another year, 6 months.
Because we have a pit at Anderson, don't we?
We
At
do,
our Anderson
yep.
location.
Yeah. But not all laundromats have pits. So to tear up, to dig up your, parking lot or God forbid your store, one of them has a pit inside the store. But in a perfect world, if you have a pit in a store and it functions and it works, there's nothing wrong with that, but you have regular maintenance. But the longer you can defer the maintenance on the pit, if you have drain troughs that are screening 90% of that before it gets to the drain, then when it gets to the pit, you can go a couple years without pumping out the pit. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
So
I have
it's
a pit, yeah, I have a pit inside, and when I had the plumbing problem, they went outside and there's a little thing in the parking lot too. So
yeah,
Do you have
usually
2 pits?
yeah,
Is that what that means?
there's a big square inside the store,
Mm.
a big plate, and they pick
Mhm.
that up like, ugh, what is this? And
Yep.
then outside it's a little round one. It's a little round one, like in one of the parking stalls. And he picked that out, and he's looking down there
like
with
a
his,
like a small clean out. Is that what you mean by
yeah, a
little?
small clean out. And
Okay,
so he's
okay.
trying to find why is the water backing up and
Yep.
everything. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, so I have those two. And then when I was talking to my architect, he said, okay, I see you only have in this 4,000 square foot laundromat, you only have one drain. And he says, how many drains do you want? I'm like, how many drains? Like I'm gonna go at like a layperson, like drain like in a shower.
Mm-hmm.
And just in case there's a flood. And he said, you
Like,
only have one here. And then how many do you want? I said, how many is normal? He says, like 3. I said, how many is really good? He's like 6. I said, give me 6.
mm-hmm.
And I
Is
said,
it,
because I'm building this store to sell it in 10 years. So I want all the good things.
Yep.
So when I sell
well,
it,
I'll tell you.
it has more value.
Yeah, if you're just doing individual floor drains, which are like a 4-inch floor drain with like a screen or a cover on it, if
Mhm.
you're doing those every 3 feet or something like that in front of your washers, that's ideal. But what's even better than that is just put a trench drain in. Do you know what a trench drain is?
Write that down. I do not.
Yeah. So basically, those excuse me, those 4-inch, they're probably 4-inch floor drains. If you put one every 3 feet, that means every 3 feet you're going to have 3 feet of floor space, and you're going to have a little 4-inch circle.
Right.
Excuse me. Trench drains are usually 6 or 8 inches wide, and they run the entire length of your washers.
Like that's okay, this might be weird, but at the edge of a pool, you know how like if you go to like a
Yes.
public
Yep.
pool, it'll have like trench drain all along the edge?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you'll see them in other uses, but that's the Cadillac of a laundromat drain system. And it still connects, I mean, underneath, it's just you can literally, you could Google it right now, trench drain, you'll see a picture, you know what I'm talking about. But it all goes back to one place, and it just connects to one 4 or 6-inch PVC usually underneath the floor. But what it does is gives you, once again, that proper disbursement. So if a washer were to flood or something, no matter where it is, there's a drain there. I mean, you have this trench drain. If
It has room to flow other than your floor.
Yes. Yeah. You don't have to like squeegee everything to this little 4-inch circle. The totality of the linear length of the front of your machines, they all have drain in it, depending on the width of the trench drain, 4, 6, or 8, or 12 inches. But that's the Cadillac. So if you haven't designed it yet and you want to do that, it is a little bit more expensive than just putting 3 or 4 floor drains in. And if I'm honest, unless you have like a flood, it's probably overkill. But once again, I mean, if you're talking about the Cadillac, that's the Cadillac.
Excellent. Trench drain. Okay.
Yep.
I'll tell my architect that
Yep.
one.
And he'll probably tell you it's overkill, and he's not wrong. I mean, if you have like I said, if you have a floor drain every 3 feet, I mean, you'll probably be fine. But if you ever have a really doozy of a flood, like your drain trough overflows or something, not a washer, but your actual drain trough, or it backs up at the public sewer system and comes back into your store or something like that. I mean, you'll be in there squeegeeing in for 3 hours because you're trying to take all the water and get it to the drains. If you have a trench drain, I mean, it'll drain almost as fast as it'll come into your store.
Well, and we just did, it's releasing actually tomorrow, an episode on insurance, laundromat insurance. And the number one claim in laundromats are slip and falls.
Yep.
So keep those floors dry.
And
So-
keep those security cameras going.
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
Yes,
Yep.
and keep the footage.
Yep, for sure. So I know we're over on time. I apologize, but those are some things that, once again, we're getting pretty nerdy here. And if anybody's watching this on our member channel later, it'll probably be really helpful. But that's, I mean, when I get into coaching calls, people start asking these questions that, you know how quick an hour can slip away. But the truth is, if you don't hire an independent coach that, one, understands these things, and most people don't. I'm not saying this because I'm special. I'm saying it because, one, I've been there and done it, and two,
Because he's made the mistakes and learned from them.
well, and I honestly, I could have made the mistakes and never learned from them if I didn't have the mentor I had that happened to own a company that manufactures drain troughs, that jumped in his car the next day and was like, "What is going on?" And he walked in the store within 5 minutes and was like, "We have let you down." Right. And then so he educated me. He was like, "This is what we should have done and why we should have done it." And you know me, Tim, I ask a million questions. I'm like, don't just tell me what to do. I want to learn. Right. And so I learned a lot in the next 3 months by messing that up. So yeah, those are all things to consider. And once again, if you're if you're retrofitting an old laundromat or something like that, and you have a limited budget, which we did until recently, then, I mean, you do what you can do. You work with what's there and things like that. But in a perfect scenario, when it comes to the drains, if you have a pit, out in your parking lot or in your store, make sure that's functioning properly, make sure it's maintained, make sure it's pumped out regularly and pressure washed, keep that smell out. But you can make that go 2 or 3 times as long if you just do something like put drain troughs in that are pitched properly and have lint interceptors and things like that. And so these are all just, once again, they're just like the trench drain. I mean, it's a Cadillac. Most laundromats don't have those. But when you're doing what you're doing and what I just did in my newest store, which is just, it used to be a laundromat, but we're tearing the crap out of this thing and basically building a new laundromat, then, I mean, once you start cutting up concrete, like, it isn't that big of a deal to put a trench drain in. They're not that expensive, right? But if you're me 15 years ago or 14 years ago, and you're not cutting up concrete because you're trying to squeeze a nickel out of a dime every day, then you don't always have the resources to do that, and it doesn't always make sense to tear up your store. So if somebody else is listening to this too, and you have limited resources or whatever, I mean, don't think you're going to be a failure because you don't do this, but I mean, it'll probably burn you at some point, but you'll worry about that, cross that bridge when you come to it, so to speak. But if you have the resources, you have the knowledge, you have a coach that can walk you through this and kind of help you prevent these things. And then, like I said, in the podcast, we cover it in more detail as far as maintenance and, how often we have our, troughs water jetted out and things like this. We jet our whole store out every year. And so, that 10% that gets by the lint screen and gets by the other one, if it lasts long enough, 4 years in, you can still have a store flood, even if you do all these things. So we have our entire store, all the drains in our store jetted out once a year, just to pretty much guarantee it'll never happen. Like, there's no scenario where our store should flood. Now I'll probably have a flood tomorrow. As I said that.
Jinxing us.
But that's in our new store. Our new store is almost flood proof. Some of the other stores, I mean, they still have, warts for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we haven't gone through and tore them up like the way we did the new one. So.
And so when you say jet it out, does a plumber do that, or is
Yep.
there a special type of do that?
Yeah, if you have a commercial plumber, I mean, you'll have mom and pops that'll do it too, but you need a pressurized water jetting system. And you can actually buy them and hook them up to your hoses, but they're pretty
Not as
like
powerful.
yeah, they're not near as powerful and not near as industrial. But so what we do is we have 4 stores and we have a commercial plumber. I mean, I have the owner's cell phone number, obviously. I'm a good customer of theirs. So what we do is just put it on a service contract, just like you would an HVAC system or anything else. And what we do, I think it costs about $800 or $900 to do a store, and they'll come out and they'll jet everything in the store. They'll take that water jet system and they'll run it in the drain trough and they'll pull the lint interceptor out. They'll run everything in the drain trough, and there's always a little something in there. They'll run that down the drain. Then they'll move the jet over the drain, run the jet down in the drain. Then they'll go over to the clean outs and run the jet down in there. And they'll run it all the way out to the street. And they won't stop until they get to the street. And then they'll back up and do it again. It takes about 4 hours to do a whole store that way. But we have it on service contracts. We have 4 stores, so we have them do one every quarter. We don't have them do them all at the same time and then get nailed with a $5,000 bill. So every quarter, we're getting a $800,000 bill for whatever the next store is. And we're always staggering by about, 12 weeks or so. But that's something that every laundromat should do. And if you don't, you might get away with it for 2 or 3 years. You might save a few $1,000s. And then you'll have a flood on Sunday afternoon and everyone in your store will have to leave and you'll be closed. And you'll have to have the plumber come out on Monday or Tuesday if you can get him to come out. And then you'll pay him $1,000. And you probably just you definitely cost yourself more headache, but you probably cost yourself more money. Now you're paying emergency rates for your plumber to come out and all these different things, not to mention the stress and the headache. So one of the things I've learned is just build these maintenance costs into my business model, right? Like just doing that every year at every store is just a cost of doing business. Just like we have our air conditioners serviced twice. We actually have our air conditioners are serviced 3 times a summer, in the beginning of the summer, the middle of the summer, and the end of the summer. And that's on a service contract too.
Middle? I thought it was beginning and end.
Well, it used to be, then we added
Okay.
another one.
Oh,
But a lot of people just turn on their air conditioner and let it run until it breaks, right? They don't do any maintenance. So little things like that can really go a long ways. And I always tell people, honestly, we used to do it the other way, and I always felt like a firefighter. Every other day I was dealing with some kind of emergency across 4 stores, and one of our stores has 4 HVAC systems in it. So like one of them we're breaking down every week, it seemed like. And finally I was like, I'm spending the same amount of money. Why don't I just be proactive versus reactive? And I think that might actually be the
that's
name
part
of the
of
podcast.
the title of that podcast.
Yeah, it's just be proactive rather than
Laundromat
reactive.
floods. Be
So
proactive versus reactive.
yeah, so we cover all this, I don't know if in more detail because we've been talking for a while now, but we cover a lot of that in depth in the podcast. So that might be helpful to you too.
Perfect.
So, all right, listen, man, we kept you 10 minutes over. I apologize. Hopefully, I know it's not. I know it's not late where you are. Hopefully you got your. Hopefully your. Hopefully your.
6.
Well, hopefully your sandwich didn't get cold if it was hot.
I was eating while you were talking.
Okay, good.
Smart.
Yeah. Well, you got plenty of time to eat then.
Excellent. This is perfect. So
Good.
I
To hear.
hope everyone listening, after the fact, will get something from this.
Yeah.
And this is
Awesome
perfect.
questions.
Great.
Great questions. I'm sure it'll be helpful.
Yeah.
All right, listen, man. Let me know how I can help. Feel free to send me pictures. I'd love to see them.
I will
Let
do.
me know as things go along. All right, we'll see you
Thank
next
Dave,
month.
Carla.
You got it.
Bye,
Take care,
Tim.
bud.
Okay. Bye-bye.
See ya.